evening, guys and dolls, cats and kittens. I hope that life is treating you well out there and that you're having a good new year. I am just flabbergasted with what's been going on with the internet lately and the true crime people that run their own channels, as well as participating people, and a couple of the recent crimes that have happened. Um, you just never know what this world is going to hand you. And I think because of Gabby Petito and them helping, the internet crime sleuths, that it did have a whirlwind effect on these two crimes that are in the process of being trying to be prosecuted right now. I'm hoping on both parties. Really weird, very strange. I'm sure that you've heard about Shanquella Robinson, as well as the Idaho University murders. Bless all their souls. I hope they crossed over and are doing much better, and that nobody got stuck here due to the trauma of what's happened to them. And I kind of stood away from things for a while because I was just monitoring how all of that was going, and everything was just so busy on the internet highway. I was going to wait a little bit for things to get settled. A couple of these cases, of course, are not going to be settled for a while. But I think now is a good time to jump in and finish up with my trilogy on honor homicides, honor killings, as it's called. But anyway, my last one is the one that started everything for me, and her name was Banaz Mahmood. And the Mahmoods were a strictly traditional Kurdish family from rural area of Kurdistan. And they moved here. There was a son and 5 daughters. The family sought asylum in the United Kingdom in 1995 when Banaz was 10 years old. Mahmoud was the oldest of 4 brothers living in South London area. Although he was the eldest, the role of the head of the family was taken by the younger brother, which comes into play later. Banaz's eldest sister had an arranged marriage, as did her younger sister Payman, also known as Paisley, who was married at the age of 16 to a man 15 years her senior. Bakai, who was 2 years older than Banaz, fled the family home in 2002 and spent her time in foster care. The eldest 4 daughters, including Banaz, were subject to a kind of mutilation to their body because of their gender. Bakai reported that she had been subjected to physical abuse and threats because she mixed with people her family did not approve of, experimented with Western clothing and hairstyles, and reported that an attempt was made to kill her, and that her father had threatened her mother, sisters, and himself if she did not return to the family home. Instead of returning, she went on to live, hiding, constantly moving, never leaving the house, and being very careful about her lifestyle, knowing that what could result to her. But then that left, the other kids at home. So during this time in their community, they do have certain males that watch over all the females. Although they may look at them lewd and lascivious, they're always making sure that they're living up to whatever their standard is and making sure not to shame their family. Shame is such a powerful, powerful motivator internally and externally. And they're not the only culture that does this or the only religion that participates in that. There are other cultures that do it as well. And the consequences from both of those can be extreme. Maybe not as extreme as here, but you can be thrown out of your culture. You can be excommunicated. You can be sent off to live by your own. And these all sound like antiquated ideas as much as this situation here where you shame your family and then you have to mortally pay for it. But it's not antiquated. people are still doing it. They feel justified about it in many of their home cultures. They, considered big time, big ball, big, time people. At the age of 16 or 17, Banaz was forced into an arranged marriage with a man from the family hometown of Qualdiza. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. By her account, he was 10 years her senior. He was illiterate and old-fashioned. She described his mindset as something from 50 years prior. Now, isn't that scary? She came in contact with police throughout her marriage, reporting that she had been word, and puddled on multiple occasions. Her family was aware of the violence that was being inflicted on her, but frankly could give a high pollutant, and told her that leaving her husband would bring shame on them. Better that you should stay there and die, just, be an ink spot on the floor, and then they'll feel better for you and you'd be a pariah. I mean, a martyr instead of a pariah. And even though, again, that sounds really, really antiquated, it's going on in more than this country, but that's why we have to call attention to this situation. Women are powerful, women are queens, women are nurturers, and we shouldn't have to pay for that. Manaz's uncle, Ari, and father, Mahmoud, disapproved of her actions. They, didn't want her talking about it. They wanted her to stay. And like I said, if she ended up dying because of it, better than that, than them shaming the family. But she'd finally had enough in July 2005, and she started a relationship with somebody else after she had returned to the family home. And his name was Ramat Suleimani. Both Banaz's uncle Ari and father Mahmoud were highly agitated and pissed off over this situation, and they were just not going to have it. And despite the fact that they keep, going to see each other, they're not bringing any shame to the family, like not openly doing anything wrong until one day they're at the Metropolitan Tube. And I guess it must have been a quick kiss between the two of them. And of course, eyes are always watching, as the eyes are watching everybody. I mean, you know that. You think you're doing something innocent in private, and come to find out, sure as heck, you're not. There's always going to be somebody there, especially with as populated as our world is now. So, of course, they would go running back to the family and let the family know that, she has shamed them and bringing shame on their family. Fearing for her safety, Banaz went to the police to report that her uncle had threatened to kill her and her boyfriend, apparently learning of the plot from overhearing a phone call between her uncle and mother on December 2nd. She delivered a letter to Wimbledon Police Station naming those she claimed that were ready to kill her. And as we discussed in the previous videos, that females in the family are often culpable in these activities as well, because it takes more than one person to pull the eyes over somebody that thinks that they're going to be taken off the face of the planet anyway. So it takes all of these people to bring that comfort level, to bring the guard down so that they can enact their plan and bring about their evil activities. On New Year's Eve, the police were called to a cafe in Wimbledon where Banaz had arrived in a distressed state, saying that her father had tried to kill her under the influence of alcohol, which her father had made her drink, which her boyfriend and everybody else seemed to deny because, of course, everybody knows that young people are just out there trying to drink and get their party on. So nobody wanted to believe her in this instance. And I guess, young ones do make things up. But this is complaint number 2. And then she's just poo-pooed. I can't imagine how alone she felt about it. The boyfriend took a video and they were speaking in their native language, which was later translated. And she was telling them how her father had her drinking and he was telling her what he was going to do to her. And the boyfriend's like, are you sure? I don't know if he could get his mind around it. Maybe his family didn't act like that or something, but it was quite distressing for her, and I feel horrible for her because she felt so alone. As many times as she's reached out, people just did not hear her pleas. If you hear something, say something. I mean, it's better to issue an apology than to have somebody suffer or something worse. On January 22nd, an attempt was made to kidnap Ramat Soleimani. 3 of the men involved were among those who Banaz had already named to the police. Both she and Ramat separately reported the incident, and Banaz was scheduled to return to the police station on January the 24th, but she never arrived. On the morning of January 24th, Banaz's parents left home to take their youngest daughter to school and go shopping, completely a setup. By this time, she had already talked to the police 5 different times, and there was a female included in that. And they all just gave her the middle finger, like, I don't have time for you, and kind of just pushed her down the road. Was it because of her culture? There are so many questions that come into play on that. I'm sure the police get into that profession for the right reasons, but over the years, I think they become thick-skinned because they do have to deal with so much that sometimes they don't realize that a situation that presenting itself may actually be the truth. So, once they try to kidnap and do whatever they're going to do to her boyfriend, then they turn their sights back on her. So they set her up. They acted like they were going to take the youngest daughter to go to school and go shopping, that the husband and the wife were together, her mom and her dad. And while she was there, Mohammed Madrid Hama, Mohammed Saleh Ali, Omar Hussein arrived at the property shortly after everybody left, according to covert recordings made of Hama while speaking with a visitor while he was on remand. The trio subjected Banaz to more than 2 hours of physical torture. Any kind of torture you can figure on a female was done to this girl before they strangled her with the ligature on her body. And I guess they'd put something else on it too, according to what they had left there. They put her body in a suitcase, transported it to a house that had nothing. I guess it was just looked like this empty, burned out house, and they buried her in the garden, and then they put a freezer on top of it. Then she was reported missing by Suleiman, who had become concerned for her welfare after being unable to contact her. I don't know why, if there was 2 of them, why they couldn't have moved away or gone into hiding, or I don't know. I guess I'm not trying to judge after the fact, because who knows what the lengths these people would have gone to bring her back. I mean, we hear what Scientologists do to follow somebody if you try to leave their religion. So I can only imagine what goes on here for something that's been around for so many years longer. So he finally calls the cops. The police are like, well, why are you calling? The family hasn't called. Her parents are like, hey, it's just like her to just take up and take off and leave, which should have given him, the number one clue that something was really wrong there, because in that religion, that isn't even allowed. And the girl was living at home. Come on, put 2 and 2 together here. So, they claim there was no reason to follow up on it, that she was just missing in action. But the boyfriend kept persisting. Thank goodness for him. Consequently, her parents and uncle were interviewed in their home searches. Homes were searched, not searches. The interviews exposed inconsistencies in the account originally given by her parents, and analysis of Suleiman's phone records indicated that Banaz's father was not the indulgent parent he claimed to be. They're just acting like little cherubs on a post there. They didn't have nothing to do with it. Their daughter's just fine. Don't nobody worry. Take all the pictures down in the house from her. Don't act like she ever existed, and let's never speak her name again, which is what happens in those instances. But Here you are in a Western society and they're treating this like a Western crime. And I'm sure everybody was like, we don't have the time of day for you people. You have no idea what's going on here. Because apparently it was the talk of everywhere else in their culture about how they're, Superman, saving their culture from shame and dealing with the women on the face of the earth. So, that being said, everybody's getting together and they're all in cahoots, trying to act like this crap ain't going down. Only people who know are the people who really care about her, and they're afraid as crap to say anything. I mean, who wouldn't be? It's obvious that she wasn't just missing to the people who really knew her. So the police investigation kept going at it. They kept trying to figure out what was going on. There was a Detective Chief Inspector Caroline Good, and she ended up winning this big ass medal for her work on it, initially working on the assumption that Banaz was alive and being held captive. Well, in that first 6 hours, she was long enough to torture her, and then that was the end of that, which happened pretty quickly. I mean, if you're talking about somebody's whole lifespan. So, they kept going at it, looking for her. Her phone hadn't been active. Her bank account remained untouched. Search operation was conducted. Simultaneous raids were carried out at properties around the country, but there was no sign. Banaz's father and uncle, along with other potential suspects, were arrested. All were uncooperative in the interviews, and the detectives were met with contempt because of the lead detective being a female. Attempts by members of the wider Kurdish community to thwart the investigation, like I told you, and protect those who were implicated, because they were Superman. Despite the community obstruction on 4th of February 2006, Mohammed Madrid Hama was charged with murder. Instrumental to this decision was Suleiman's positive identification of Hama as one of those who had earlier tried to kidnap him and had threatened to kill him both and Banaz. While in custody, Hama was recorded bragging about his role and the role of others. Because of course, you're Superman, you got to brag about it and talk about how big balls you got. So that whole thing was just a nightmare. And he didn't have any remorse about it, even after they talked to him about it, tried to tell him what to do to keep his case from being ruined. He just kept going at it because, they're going to live by their own rules, not our hanky Western rules. But yet, here's where they come to live. Why don't you keep your asses back at home then? Leave these poor women alone. So once the cat was out of the bag, he directly implicated her uncle and her cousins, Muhammad Saleh Ali, Omar Hussein, and Dana Amin. The recordings, coupled with the phone and vehicle tracking data, enabled Benazi's remains to be located. She was found on April 28th of 2006. Poor thing had been alone all that whole time, and they've just been out there acting like they got big balls. After initially claiming that Banaz's service would take place at Regent Park Mosque, the family made their way to a mosque in Tooting. DIC Caroline Good stated they had deliberately lied to us to prevent us from being present. Anybody who was going to stand on her side wasn't welcome anywhere. I'm sure they just wanted to get it over and act like it never happened at all. They went in for prayers, leaving their daughter's body in a side road. There was absolutely no doubt in the detective's mind that it was only our presence that forced the family to hold a funeral. Otherwise, they probably would have thrown her in I don't know. So she was left in the cemetery, and her family left her grave unmarked. And plenty of the other ones are left like in the middle of nowhere with a pile of rocks just around them. They do is very little because they're trying to wipe their whole memory and take the shame off of their family. They both, the dad and the uncle, fled to Iraqi Kurdistan after the murder. and were going out to all the cafes and bragging about their shit on how they were getting away with all of that. And finally, that's what got this DIC chick the Medal of Honor, because she was able to get them extradited in June 2009, and they all got sentenced at least 20 years. And so that's all well and good. I don't think it's going to change their culture by far, because it's been going on so much longer. They are kind of a feudal people anyway. As an outsider looking in, I don't want to be judging people on their own culture, but it appears to be that way. And so there was nothing to be done about that. And the sister, Bacall, she's still in hiding because, she's worried and threats to her life. And she doesn't forgive what happened to her sister. To do that, which she feels like would be to betray her sister as well, which I agree with her. She wishes they would all die in jail and their ashes would be flushed down a sewer. She hopes that people who covered up Benaz's murder, excuse me, will never see the light of heaven. She has a long list of people she dislikes. Her father, who arranged it to happen, her book, and her uncle, who pressed Mahmoud to have Banaz put in that situation and fixed everything up, and then the people who participated in torturing her, and then, taking her off the planet. The South London Kurdish community, who blocked and resisted the Metropolitan's police investigation with its omerta. We are speaking via video call before the publication, No Safe Place, Murdered by Our Father, her memoir of her abusive childhood and her sister's offing. Banaz was a landmark case that did much to make public awareness of this type of violence, as well as the inadequacy of the police response to such cases. It should be called the devil's work, not what they term it. Her characteristic forcefulness, honor has nothing to do with it. It's dishonor, it's disloyalty. And I see where she's coming from. Family should come first. I don't know how you could have somebody raise them, formulate them from a seed from your body and treat them like that. Shame is such a powerful motivator, I guess. So the daughter now, Bacall, has been in hiding. She feels guilty. She feels like if she had ran away, and taken, her sister with her, that this wouldn't be the situation at all. She'd be able to, survive it and get away with it as well. I'm not sure that's the truth. They, because these people, they don't stop at anything. So they probably would have definitely looked for her. So I'm not sure that would have been a good answer at all. It leaves you feeling so sick. I watched the British show on it, which is called Honor. And it was very impactful. It was very strong, moving. It brought up, I think, a lot of the good parts of it. I know it was a long period of time that this happened over, and I think they were able to bring it down to a good points, making you still feel what was going on. Because, man, what happened to her should not happen to people. And it definitely shouldn't happen to you by your family. So, Bacall, when she was 18, Bauman, her father had paid money, $300, I guess, to go kill her. And he was going to kill her, but then he was broke down and couldn't do it. And so, not everybody, everybody tries to support that. I'm sure they have a certain expectation out of the males as well as the females. And their expectations are pretty harsh as well there, I'm sure. The boyfriend did mention something about telling the dad that they were in love and you can't tell the heart what to do. And the dad got really upset because that's kind of insinuation that there was some